Today we are exploring historic Brattonsville in McConnell, South Carolina. Just ahead is the McConnell House. This is a log house that has been relocated to the historic Brattonsville site. This one-room log house has a sleeping loft that was typical for families living in the South Carolina backcountry in the 18th and 19th centuries. Today, the house is furnished as it would have been in 1780 during the Revolutionary era. Coming out the other door, you can see workshops, storage sheds, and animal pens, as well as a well-furnished garden. All things at historic Brattonsville are replicated as close as possible to how life would have been in the 18th and 19th centuries. In the garden over here, you can see signposts that notate what is planted. There are things such as squash, beans, and in the back you can see the structures that would help keep the bean plants upright. Up ahead is an animal pen and workshops, storage sheds. Currently, historic Brattonsville does keep some animals. They have a ram in this pen. And then as we walk along, there is a tool shed, a blacksmith. This house is the Brattonsville Family Seminary. The original Bratton family house, this main 1.5-story section of the house, was built around 1766 as the home of William and Martha Bratton. Originally, the log house had one room downstairs and one upstairs. William and Martha had 8 children, farmed and owned enslaved people. William served as a colonel in the militia during the Revolutionary War and fought at the Battle of Huck's Defeat, which was on site here at historic Brattonsville. In 1839, William and Martha's youngest son, John S. Bratton Sr., remodeled the house and added a wing for the establishment of the Brattonsville Female Seminary for the education of his daughters. Current preservation efforts will restore the house to its appearance of 1840. We are now walking across the street to explore even more sites here at historic Brattonsville. This house is a field slave house. This was a building that has been relocated to historic Brattonsville. It is believed to be similar to wooden slave houses that were built on the plantation. This house is currently closed for stabilization purposes. You can see many fields where crops would have been grown, and some are grown. Here we have a reconstructed slave house. This house was reconstruction on an original foundation found on the site, and it was likely occupied by enslaved people that both lived and worked in these spaces, like the field around it and the kitchen beneath the big house. These enslaved people likely performed domestic tasks that supported the homestead house, or were skilled artisans like blacksmiths, carpenters, etc. 40 feet to the west, you will see the ruins of another slave house. These brick slave cabins would have been built to kind of show off the Bratton family wealth, as most slave housings would have been made out of wood, as we saw previously. Many of those houses are no longer standing. And this one, as well as a couple other ones, have been built up from a foundation that was found on the site. Just ahead, we have a kitchen. Building this kitchen took some archaeological investigation, and this kitchen was reconstructed on the foundation of the original structure. Historic Brattonsville does have interpreters throughout the week, historical interpreters, that can tell you about the history of the plantation. They call this the brick kitchen. It would have been extremely active around this building because it would have been the center of the food preparation for the Bratton family. The enslaved cooks were highly skilled and capable of creating elaborate meals for the Brattons and their visitors. In addition to serving as a workspace, it was likely the home of the enslaved cook and their family. In this building, you can see ovens in the corner, as well as the cooking fire and tools that are reminiscent of 18th and 19th century tools that would have been used when the plantation was active. Coming back out the door, you can see the back of the main house. And here we have a corn crib, and next to it is a working barn. This work barn was also relocated to its present location for use in living history demonstrations. The corn crib that we have just passed was also relocated for this purpose. Inside the work barn, you can see the types of tools that would have been used in the 18th and 19th century for woodworking and other such things. There are a couple of different kinds of workbenches. And again, just tools that would have been in use. That green chest, for example, would be something they would have made by hand. You can see their pile of wood that they would have been used to work. Coming out the other side, you can see some more animal pens. We have a pig pen. A lot of times at historic Brattonsville, they will have babies to kind of keep the farm life going. We have the chicken coop here, built just as it would have been in the time the Bratton family lived in the building, in the house. You can see there is a small door open for chickens to come and go as they please. Next to the chicken are the sheep. Every spring, Historic Brattonsville has a program about sheep shearing and how sheep shearing would have been done. It's usually around the second or third weekend in May. You can also see there are some lambs. And then next to the sheep are some cows. Up ahead is the McGill barn. This barn has also been relocated to the site. It has been placed in the approximate position of a previous barn. The building is closed to visitors for safety purposes and preservation and research and such. We can see our chicken friends are out of their coop. Some grapevines from the Bratton family. Up ahead is another slave house. This again was built based on a foundation found on site. You can see ruins of slave houses like this throughout the property. Up ahead is the dairy. This would have been an original slave building. It is likely served a dual purpose for enslaved people and cool storage in the basement for dairy products from the plantation. In 1850, Harriet Bratton owned 27 milk cows from which her enslaved people produced 900 pounds of butter. In this building, there is research in progress uncovering the stories of enslaved people and freedom. Ahead, you can see the main house. There you can see the doors to go into the basement. That would have been where the cool storage would have been. Ahead is another brick house. It would have been completed in 1843. Oh, this slave house would have been one of about 8 brick houses. Again, most slave houses were wood. They have some research going on in here as well. A house of untold stories. On the sign, you can see um, a couple of different pictures. Every brick that was in these buildings would have been made by slaves on the property. You can pause and zoom in to read the sign if you would like to. There are 3 interesting pictures on this sign. The 1843 slave inventory, some slave cabin artifacts, things like buttons, beads, comb, fragments of a dish, and a slave-made brick. You can see the fingerprints that went into the making of this brick. We're coming up on the Brattonsville store ruins. You can still see the fireplace. There are large stones around the edge of the foundation to show how big this structure would have been. This building was built around 1885 by Napoleon Bratton, and it replaced the store inside the brick house. That is the brick house. So the ruins are from a fire destroyed the original store in 2004. On the brick house, you can see again a set of doors to go down to the basement. This brick house addition was under preservation for a few years. The first door you would come in has what the Bratton family store would have looked like. After the Civil War, Napoleon Bonaparte Bratton, who was the youngest son of Harriet and John Bratton Sr., he and his family lived in the house and operated this store. You can see here there are a few copies of things you can look at. The Brattonsville store, a thriving family business. You can see the inventory, some more inventory. And then that is what the receipt from the store would have looked like. So this store and the parlor next door have been restored to their 1871 appearance. So the appearance that they would have had in the Reconstruction era. In the parlor, you can see information about liberty and resistance, the Reconstruction era, and how the house played a part in that. Some trinkets that may have been in the house. Furniture. There is a information about Captain James Williams, militia and civil rights leader. Through this glass, you can see an original part of the house. This area is not, visitors cannot go in right now. You can see how the stairs would have looked, a fireplace back through that door. There is also a placard by the road about the brick house. And now we will go back across the street to the visitor center. That is historic Brattonsville for you. It served a long, long history during both the American Revolutionary War as well as the Civil War. That is the visitor center. It was constructed to appear as an 18th century house.